Hi guys, welcome to our Scrapy Splash tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to go through how to render and scrape JavaScript websites with Scrapy Splash. Scrapy Splash is basically a lightweight browser with a HTTP API which you can use when scraping to render websites and then scrape the data you need from those JavaScript rendered websites. So we're going to go through installing Scrapy Splash, using Scrapy Splash with Scrapy spiders, and then interacting with the rendered pages using the Scrapy Splash API and seeing what happens when we do that. So let's get started. For this tutorial we're going to be scraping the site Quotes to Scrape, which is JavaScript rendered, and it's got different things, like there's also an infinite scrolling version of this page as well. So it's very useful to test out our different scraping methods and seeing how we get on with the different bits and pieces. As part of this tutorial, we're going to be following along an article that we already have created, and in the article we have all the different commands you're going to need, as well as all the different code snippets that we're going to be using in this tutorial. So I'd recommend that you check out the description of the video, and you can actually open the article there and follow along, and it'll make following this video much easier. So Scrapy Splash needs to have Docker installed on your computer because it actually comes as part of a Docker image. So you're first off going to have to install Docker, so either for Mac, Windows, or for Linux. So once Docker is installed, the next thing you're going to do is basically do a Docker pull and scraping hub /splash, and that will pull down the Docker image onto your machine. So if you have Docker desktop on Mac or Windows, you should be able to see that you've pulled down the image, because as we can see here, scraping hub /splash is there, which is the Scrapy Splash image that we'll be using. So the next thing we want to do is we want to run that Docker image. So we can do that by going to our terminal and just typing in the docker run command. So it's docker run -it-p, and then you put in the port number you're going to be using and the image name. So we can hit enter and that will start up. So then, as we can see, the server is listening on localhost port 8050. So we can just double check that works by going to the URL, which I already have open here, and just typing in localhost 8050, which is the port. And as we can see, Scrapy Splash is up and running. So the handy thing here is that we can test our different Splash functions in here, and we can actually render the page with that Scrapy Splash function. It also gives us all the different requests that happened and the raw HTML as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull down the project that we're going to be using. So we're going to be using our quotes.js project, which is just a simple base Scrapy project that we can use. So we're just going to clone that now. I'm going to open up a new terminal here and just do a git clone and clone that project. Okay, so now that we have that cloned, the next thing we're going to do quickly is just set up a Python virtual environment. In here, we're just going to run the create virtual environment command. We're going to activate that virtual environment, and then we're going to install Scrapy. And then after that, we're going to install Scrapy Splash. Okay, so now Scrapy's installed. Let's install Scrapy Splash. And Scrapy Splash is installed. So now we can actually start putting in the Scrapy Splash settings. So first off, we need to go to our settings inside in the folder we just cloned, and we're going to add in everything we need to connect with Scrapy Splash. So we need this splash URL, which basically just tells it the endpoint of the Scrapy Splash server. We need to add in the downloader middlewares, which are going to be interacting with Scrapy Splash, as well as the spider middlewares. And last but not least, our dupe filter class. So now that all that is done, we can quickly add in to our main spider, which is here. Just save the settings. So I'm going to be just pasting directly in. So obviously we're going to need to import the splash request, which is going to be making sure that the Splash server is used to render the URL correctly. And then once the URL is rendered correctly and sent back to us, the callback is what will be run. And this callback is just going to parse the response and using again the CSS selectors, which I'm sure you probably know by now if you're familiar with Scrapy. These CSS selectors are going to pull out the different quotes that are on the page and then save those quotes inside the quote item, and then they're going to return all those items one by one as we loop through the different quotes on the page. So let's save that now and try and run that and see, did it render correctly and can we get the quotes displaying for us correctly. So we'll just type in Scrapy crawl quotes to run our spider, and we should see no module name Scrapy Splash. So let's quickly just deactivate our environment, and then we can reactivate our environment one more time. That usually does the trick when something isn't working like that. Okay, let's try that one more time. And there we have our quotes coming through. So we have author, tags, and text. And as we can see, if we scroll up through the logs, we have several quotes. So that worked correctly for us. The page was rendered. The rendered HTML was sent back and then parsed by our parse function, and the quotes were extracted out using the CSS selectors. So now that we have the basic Scrapy Splash working, let's add in a simple wait just to make sure that our page gets rendered properly, because if we sometimes don't have a wait added in, then Scrapy Splash will try and return the page to us and it won't have actually finished rendering correctly. So it's important that we have a wait in there. Obviously, you don't want to have a wait that's 10 seconds long, because if you're scraping a lot of pages, that will add a huge amount of time to your crawl time overall. So something realistic like half a second, a second is usually enough time for the page to render correctly. So let's add that in now. So we actually have two ways of getting our script to wait. One is that we can just give it a specific amount of time, like a half a second or whatever you want it to be. The other is that we can actually, using a Lua script, we can wait for a specific class to appear on the page before Scrapy Splash moves on to finish the processing of the different items on the page. So to do that, let's first just add in a simple wait. So we can do that with just this args here, and we just say wait, and we're saying wait a half a second. So let's just run that again, and we have all our different quotes coming through. So that was the simple wait. Next, now we're going to add in the script that we want to run. So let's just add that in above our class. So first we're going to basically say go to the URL with this splash go, and it's going to go to this URL that we're going to pass through in the arguments. And then while we don't yet have the quote div on screen, then keep waiting for another 0.1 of a second and keep looping through until that div.quote is on the screen. And once that's on the screen, then return the splash rendered HTML. So that's the script that we want to run. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get that to be passed into the splash request. So we're going to put in a new splash request here. And as we had before, the URL and the callback, but we're also going to have this execute. We're going to tell it to go to the execute endpoint on the Scrapy Splash server and execute that script. We have the Lua source and then the Lua script, which we have above. And we have that URL that we're passing through, which is the website that we want to crawl. Okay, so let's just quickly run that and see does it work correctly. So Scrapy crawl quotes again. And if we scroll up, we have all our author and quotes and tags coming through again. So it looks like it worked correctly. Great. Okay, so the next part we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can scroll down a page using the Lua script. So for that, we're just going to go up and modify our existing script. We're just going to add in a num scrolls of 10, a scroll delay, and using this splash.js function here, we can actually use the window.scroll2 JavaScript function and then scroll to the bottom of the page every time. So obviously we're going to scroll 10 times. We're going to leave a delay of 1 second between each scroll, and then once we've scrolled 10 times, we're going to return the HTML. And the only other thing we want to change is change that to be our scroll website. So again, let's check does that work just by running the Scrapy crawl quotes. It might take a few seconds longer this time. And as we can see, we have an item scrape count of 100. So that would mean that it did scroll 10 times because there's 10 quotes on each page that is scrolled through. So we can just double check that ourselves by going to that scroll page. And if we scroll down, another 10 load. We scroll down, another 10 load. We scroll down, another 10 load. So that worked correctly, exactly like we wanted. And as we can see, manipulating the page is quite simple using the Lua script that you can modify to do all the different things that you really need to. So you can also use this JS function here, which is very useful to put in different snippets of JavaScript code and get Scrapy Slash to actually run them like you would a standard piece of JavaScript in the browser. Okay, so the next thing we want to quickly look at now is how to click elements on the page using the Lua script and Scrapy Splash. So if we quickly go back to the quotes to scrape.com page and just go back to the normal JavaScript rendered page, and we scroll down to the bottom, we have a nice button here we can click. So if we click that next button, it brings us to the next page, and we can click it again and we get to a third page. That's probably the main button that's useful to click on here. So I mean, we could pick different links, but this button seems to be the main thing that would make sense to click on in this situation. So that's what we're going to pick. So if we right click the button and inspect the element, we can see that that has a class of next, and then within that class of next we have the href with the page 2 link there. So when we click that, it should then render the next page, and this is the first quote that should be rendered. So this long quote by Marilyn Monroe. So let's quickly modify our Lua script to do that. So if we go back to our script, and we will be just going to our URL with the splash go, and again passing in the URL in the args. We just want to actually pass in the args there, and then we're going to say, okay, click on the A tag. So we're selecting the CSS selector and putting that in the element, and then this element we're going to be mouse clicking on the element, and then waiting for the page to be rendered and returning the rendered HTML. So we just need to change our URL to the standard JS page, and let's up the wait time to a second. The endpoint is still going to be execute, and let's just change that to the JS page as well, and the parse function is going to remain the same. So let's quickly run that and see, do we get that big Marilyn Monroe quote as the first thing that gets returned to us. So let's scroll up. The first quote we have returned, Marilyn Monroe, and this life is what you make it. And if we go back, this life is what you make it. So it clicked on the link at the bottom of the page, went to page 2, and then started scraping everything that was on this page 2 that was rendered. So that was quite easy to do. So again, depending on the site you're scraping and how you want it to work, you can pick different CSS selectors and then use this mouse_click function to click on the element that you've selected on screen. Okay, let's look at how you can take a screenshot of any page that is rendered using Scrapy Splash. Okay, so for this we're not going to need a Lua script, so we can get rid of that. We are going to be updating our start requests. So what we're going to have instead is we're going to be going and hitting a different endpoint on our Scrapy Splash server, the render.json endpoint. And the arguments that we're going to pass in are going to be HTML set as 1, PNG set as 1, and the width, which is going to be the image width that'll be returned. The other thing we want to do is update our parse function, because we're not going to be taking the different quotes out anymore. What we're going to be doing instead is the response PNG. We're going to base64 decode that, and then we're going to write that into an image, and the file name of the image is going to be called sum_image.png, and using the write function we're going to write out the image. So the only thing we need to import is the base64, so we can import that at the top of the page, and everything else there should be fine. So now if we again run our Scrapy crawl quote, as you can see on the side, sum_image.png was created in the folder, and here it is. So one other thing that can be useful to do is, for example, run a JavaScript script. So let's run a JavaScript script on our page just before it's rendered to update the text at the top of the page to say the best quotes of all time. So it currently says quotes to scrape, and we're going to change this quotes to scrape to the best quotes of all time using this snippet of JavaScript, which we can actually quickly test out on our page by going to the console and we can quickly paste it in here. And oh, that's wrong because we're missing the extra. So there you go. So we've quickly updated the header there using the document.query selector h1 inner HTML and setting that inner HTML to be the best quotes of all time. So we're going to do that programmatically now with Scrapy Splash. So we have our JavaScript script. We actually don't need that element section either. And we are then going to just add in a quick wait, and we're going to give the source of JavaScript, and we're going to pass in that JavaScript snippet into the args. So that should be all we need to do, and we can again run our Scrapy crawl. It should execute the JavaScript snippet, and then it should render the page, and it should take the screenshot with what is returned. So as you can see, the best quotes of all time. So before the page was rendered, that H1 element was modified, and then the page was rendered, returned to Scrapy, and then that was saved in our folder. So it's quite easy to just run snippets of JavaScript on the unrendered page as well. So that can be very useful when you need to modify different bits of the page before the rendering occurs. Okay, so that's the last bit of this tutorial. If you have any other questions or you get stuck in any specific point in the tutorial, just let us know in the comments and we'll do our best to help you. Again, all the snippets that were used in this tutorial are in the article, and that article is in the description. So I'd highly recommend checking out the article and having a look there. You know, Scrapy Splash, if you can get Docker running on your machine, is a very useful tool to use when scraping JavaScript rendered sites. And Scrapy Selenium is also an option, and so is Scrapy Playwright. So those would be the three main Scrapy JavaScript rendered options that are out there currently. So thanks for following along, guys, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.